How do you do? I'm Graham Murphy. I'm a category manager at TechRentals. Today we're just going to look at the HTRAM V2W. It's a Honeywell device. It's a transmission risk air monitor. In other words, it's looking at the risk of transmission, particularly of COVID. Now, the main function of the device is essentially to measure your CO2 levels. Now, CO2 levels effectively measure the quality of your ventilation. Now, your quality of ventilation equates, poor ventilation equates to greater risk of COVID. So here's the device. Now, it's already gone to medium because I'm sitting in a place that is fairly poorly ventilated. It'll probably go to high. So, a little simple device, has an indicator on the front giving us threshold levels. Now, how CO2 relates to ventilation quality is the fact that outdoors CO2 levels are around 400 parts per million. We breathe CO2 out. So in other words, the higher the level of CO2 inside a room indicates the fact that people are breathing out and the air isn't being exchanged. So in other words, if there were two people in this room, essentially what would be happening is the fact we'd be breathing each other's air, which is obviously a COVID risk. Anyway, now this little device, it's already up to 950, mainly because I'm holding it near the intake, I'm holding it near my mouth and breathing. Now we have both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Fully charged device will run for about 10 hours. Now we'll just go through setting one of these things up. It's relatively simple, so we'll just quickly go through that and show you how to do that using the iPhone. Thank you. Right, this unit will run for approximately 10 hours on its internal battery. You can either leave it charging, you can charge it up and put it out on site if you want to in different locations around the office, or you can power it from the USB port here. Typically you'd put this in some place, for example, approximately head height. In areas where people are working, you would make sure, for example, if there's a stove around, it will of course generate CO2, which means that you'll mess up your readings quite significantly. You get much higher readings than you'd expect. You want to keep it out of direct sunlight, and there's a couple of other things you want to worry about, floor fans, induction units, etc., heaters, things like that. So you need to be a little bit careful about where you place it. You place it in those spots and monitor it. Okay, I've installed the app using the QR code. I now run the app up. Now it looks for devices. Now at the moment I've previously connected to it, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to add it as if it's a new device. So I hit this plus button, search. Now it will find the device. Now it's using Bluetooth to connect to there, so now I'm going to connect to it. So it's connecting via Bluetooth. Having connected via Bluetooth, it will read, I'll give it a name, work, uppercase W-O-R-K, that'll do, return. Now we'll go next. It's found the local Wi-Fi, which I'm using. Oops. Okay. Now I connect to that. Now what it's doing is the Bluetooth here is transferring that Wi-Fi information to the unit, and when it's uploaded the Wi-Fi connection information, it successfully connects. That now both my phone and the device are talking to each other via Wi-Fi. So we hit click done. Now here's the unit here. Now a couple of things we can do here. We can, for example, change whether or not we've got a low activity room, medium activity room, high activity room, or custom, and we can edit that. Now, some of these features cannot be edited unless you are in, you've got to turn off, this is the detail about it, configure network room. You can upload to the internet after you've, see over here, we've had to create an admin account, etc. So you need to, there's three places you can just change settings. Now we can turn off the display if we want to, Now, when we're using we can also use enterprise settings. So an enterprise settings means the fact that you might want to program 20 devices at once, etc. If we're just using a single device, you use just single device. Now, muting it means it turns the audible alarm off. We can alarm settings, we can actually set them. Now, if you want to set custom ones, you can. If you look on the instructions, there's some links there to that you can actually calculate different figures for your thresholds depending on the size of room and a few others, but the default ones work quite well. So all of that's there. Now the other thing is the fact we can also look at the history, and here's the readings this has had, and it's got very high readings here because I happen to have it in the kitchen and the stove was turning on, etc. And here's our temperature. It's quite a hot day today. It was left outside for a while, there it is there. Now, thing is the fact that we're assessing our the quality of our ventilation. So I will continue with that in a second. Okay, using this unit, what we've done is assess the quality of our ventilation. Now, if we have poor ventilation in the building, we've increased our risk of COVID. Simple, sweet. You have to be a little careful when you consider CO2 measurements because, for example, I happen to be in a room by myself at the moment. No increased risk, of course. Just happens to be that the room is relatively poorly ventilated. Now, if you figure that you have poor ventilation, you've got a couple of choices. One, improve the ventilation, reduce the number of people in the room, etc. Now, if you can't do any of those, TechRentals has the solution, and that is it's the unit is the InovaAir DE20-PLUS, which is a HEPA filter. It's an air filtration unit. So what you'd typically do is the fact that you can't improve the ventilation, or it'll be improved in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, you can put in an air filtration system. Now, if you put the air filtration system in, of course, it won't affect the CO2 levels. You'll still get high CO2 levels. But what it will be doing will be removing viruses from the air. So if you want to protect your employees and protect your business more importantly, you can put one of these filters in, and that will remove viruses. So if you can't improve your ventilation, you've managed to prove your ventilation is really up the creek and you need to improve it, a HEPA air filtration system is a very effective way of doing it. These solutions are available from TechRentals. Thank you very much.